I've always been interested in connecting my personal, I guess, my goals for life with what I research. So I thought it's almost like a philosophical and existential question of how much we're controlled or how much we might be controlled. And it seemed important to look at some of the more extreme cases, if you could.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting aspect of it. Like, how much are we controlled, and how arrogant are we to think that we're not controlled? Or how arrogant are we to think that that wouldn't work on me?
Yeah, I think that that's embedded in our, in the messages we receive all the time, that freedom is something kind of effortless that we're just granted, and that autonomy is just the natural state. But actually, we're so much more malleable than we think. And these things, if you look around yourself or if you observe yourself, you'll often see this to be true. That's what also drew me to anthropology, is just the idea, like, if I was born in another place at another time, I would be another person, or how much of me would be transferable was
Right.
what that interested me. And that's why I first started studying anthropology. Like, how much are we shaped by things that we don't necessarily choose or are maybe accidental or genetic or various factors. But but I think we're told that that freedom of choice or our autonomy is fairly straightforward, and all you have to do is exert your will.
Yeah, but clearly we're influenced heavily by our environment culturally. I mean, accents, just cultural traditions, behavior patterns. It begs the questions like, what are you, and what is the shell that you wear on the outside? You know, like a hermit crab. Like, what do you carry around with you, and what at the core of it, what are you?
Yeah,
You know?
that is the oldest question of Socrates. Who am I? Or,
Yeah.
just the question. It's a deep question, and it's also kind of like a practical question. So I thought if you could look at it more in actual examples, that would be interesting. And I guess I was drawn to the topic. Maybe because other people weren't studying it, or also because of experiences in my life, just seemingly small things. Like one day, I remember when I was in graduate school, I was walking down the street and I said, we passed a small dog, and I said, I really hate small dogs. And I realized as I said it that it wasn't true, that I had just I actually really like them. What's wrong with small dogs? But I had absorbed this opinion from somewhere that, like, a person that such as I was aspiring to be, only liked, big dogs or something like that. But just noticing in yourself the way you soak up opinions, and you're shaped by, even seemingly trivial things. And then also on a more profound level, you can see that happening. Made me wonder, like, what could you learn from looking at these cases where people really seem to have been brainwashed, in history, or radically reshaped, perhaps.
And then there's brainwashing yourself. Because if you say, I hate small dogs, now you have to kind of defend it. And and even if you say, God, it's not even true, but there's got to be reasons to hate small dogs. I don't want to come off as a moron who just says things.
There are other people who feel the same.
Yeah.
It turns out, maybe either you end up doubling down on that opinion because you don't want to feel silly to yourself. I mean, I think sometimes we're just a series of adopted opinions that we then adhere to. And I guess being in graduate school also made me feel that way, because you're rapidly learning and absorbing a new vocabulary, learning things you should say, learning things you shouldn't say, ways you should express yourself and ways you shouldn't. That seemed very like a deeply shaping process. And I was interested in, how did social sciences, was there a science of this process of shaping, or they sometimes called it canalizing, or making, a canal of behavior so that people would end up wanting to do what it was that socially necessary for them to do.
Well, universities are a great place for that, right? Because you get away from your parents for the first time, who have indoctrinated you into their cult. Like, you were born into the cult of your parents, and then you leave, and you're like, let me get away from these crazy people, and now I'm going to become a whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I'm going to figure out which group most aligns with my ideas and join them and rebel and fight against the machine and become a part of a new cult.
Exactly. Wear something
Yeah.
different or adopt. I don't like certain kinds of dogs, or I wear a certain thing, or
Yeah.
you have an interruption in the fabric of your extensive conditioning, and that
Yeah.
is it's also an opportunity. It's not a nefarious thing
No.
necessarily, but it can take that truth about people.
I think it can be nefarious for some people, unfortunately. But I think for a lot of people, just considering new ways to think about things is probably valuable. It's
Yeah.
probably a good thing to have the opportunity to reconsider the way that you've sort of like canaled
Yeah.
the grooves that have been deeply carved into your personality, where you automatically go towards certain things or think about certain things.
I always think just an interruption is often good
Oh yeah,
in your patterning,
yeah. That's why I think moving is really good.
or traveling, or
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
a bunch of resets.
I've read that you have had a steady meditation practice. I've read it was like 2 hours a day for 25 years.
Yeah.
That's
I
a
have.
lot of time to be meditating.
Yeah, it really helped me so much when I learned to meditate that I never wanted to miss an hour. So I'd never missed an hour, except when I was giving birth to my daughter, which was its own thing. But like,
You get a break for the meditation for that. You get a hall pass.
and it's not like anyone made me or I necessarily thought I would do that. It's just that it's something that gave me a lot of perspective and peace, and I guess I just didn't want to go back. So I do think it informs how I do research, or I try to bring what I learn in meditation into what I do.
Do you do an hour in the morning and an hour at night?
Yeah.
Wow.
And for a year, I think a couple of times I've tried adding more in the morning, so 2 hours or so in the morning and an hour in the evening or something, which has an effect, but it's hard to make room in your life sometimes.
Oh, for sure.
But it does, you can sleep a little bit less.
Yeah?
Well, you don't want to make yourself sleep less, but sometimes it just does reduce the amount you need.
Just by meditating.
That's
Really?
what I found.
Interesting. How much sleep do you need?
I used to sleep like 8.5 hours, and then now I sleep about 7 or 6.5, or if I'm really tired, I might sleep a little extra, but I ended up just, yeah, it's so much changed my life that I just, I move things around so I could always do it, and try to be adaptable. So I just mostly get up at a regular meditation time, which is like 4:30.
What kind of meditation?
I do Vipassana, which is a form of Buddhist meditation. It's just a form of observation, or someone once described it as practice in seeing things as they are. So you try to it's not trying to, apply a lens over something or chanting. It's just it's cultivating observation of the subtle body ultimately, or just what is in front of you.
And so you just sit in peace and think?
Well, it's not always peaceful. There is sometimes, yeah, but thought.
I mean, peace as far as like you're not bouncing around.
Sometimes I'm sitting, I've also I've adapted. So when my daughter was little, sometimes I'd hold her or be putting her to sleep or something. But mostly I'm just sitting there and with eyes closed, and then you kind of move, you observe just how you are. And the more you practice it, the more you can kind of go into it more deeply.